And Ms. Phillips, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to our jury.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jack Smith.
And Jack, I'm going to remind you to talk a little bit slowly because we have the court reporter taking everything down. She gets annoyed with us if we talk too fast. Okay. And do you know Tammi Smith?
I do.
How do you know her?
She's my wonderful wife.
And when did you meet Tammi, Jack?
Tammi and I met in Nashville about in 98.
And how did you meet? How did your meeting come about?
She was an aspiring country singer, and I was a country music musician and record producer.
I'm sorry, you were what?
And a record producer.
Okay. And what were the circumstances of your meeting? Do you remember?
It was of a musical nature. We were both loved music, and so we would talk about different things having to do with music and what I felt like her career could be.
And when did you get married?
In 2004, Valentine's Day.
So about, my math is really terrible, 8 years? You've been married to Tammi about 8 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you knew her about 6 years before that?
Yes.
Before you married. Okay. Now, Jack, is there a reason why you haven't been sitting in the courtroom with us these past few weeks?
Yes, I was told that because I am a witness that I was not able to be. I certainly wanted to be, but couldn't.
Okay. And once you're released as a witness, will you be sitting in the courtroom with us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, tell us, tell our jury, please, a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Where were you born?
I was born in California, San Joaquin Valley. My father was a Pentecostal minister, and I grew up in the church playing music, somewhat regarded as a child prodigy, if I can boast. At a young age, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where I quickly became a sought-after musician, both on stage, on record, and on TV, and started my career at a very early age.
Okay, what, did you play an instrument?
Yes.
What instrument did you play?
I play pedal steel guitar.
And while you were in Tennessee, tell us about some of the things that you did career-wise.
Did a lot of, obviously, traveling on the road with different musicians, such as I worked with Dolly Parton, worked with Ronnie Millsap, and many others that were certainly in that time period, very popular in that time period.
And again, what was the time frame of this?
Oh, goodness. That would have been from around the early 70s to almost to present. And did a lot of TV shows, quite successful doing that.
Okay. Did you do any recordings with any of these artists?
I did lots of recordings over the years. That's one of the things as a musician. I mean, it just sort of comes with the territory. The more popular you become, the more you're sought after as a musician. So therefore, we would, as we would create certain sounds, people would want us to come and work with them. So, I was able to do quite a few recordings with both Dolly and Ronnie and TV shows and that sort of stuff.
Okay, and I'm going to remind you to please try and not talk over me. Let me finish the question because, again, it just makes it difficult for the court reporter. Okay, thank you. Okay, so at some point you moved to Arizona, correct?
That is correct.
And when did you move to Arizona?
Moved to Arizona it was about 6 years ago.
Were you married to Tammi at the time?
Forgive me?
Were you married to Tammi at the time?
Yes.
Okay, and so you moved here together?
We did.
Okay, and do you do something different? Well, let me ask you this. Why did you move to Arizona? Is there reasons for moving to Arizona? Why did you and Tammi move to Arizona?
Well, the musical life, the life of a musician, albeit a wonderful time for about the hour that you spend on stage, it's a very hard life, and traveling around all over the country. the older I would get, when I started out, I was the youngest in the band. At the end, I was the oldest in the bands. And I had sometimes boots older than the musicians and the singers that were there. So therefore, I chose to go into a different life, into a business life, creating. I had a couple of successful record companies in Nashville at that time, and it was time to go into another direction. And so.
Okay, so what do you do for a living now?
My wife and I own a colon hydrotherapy business.
Okay, and have you done any other jobs or professions since you've been in Arizona?
I have my real estate license, and do try to do some of that. But the real estate market around here is not all that good right now. So I've been focusing more on trying to keep our business alive.
Okay. Do you have any children?
We do. I do, and we do. I have 3 grown children. My daughter, Nikki, is 39 years old. My son, Donnie, is 35, and my son, Luke, 32.
And what do they do for a living?
Nikki's into telemarketing, and Donnie is into mortgages. He works for a large mortgage company. And my son, Luke, is still doing some schooling.
Okay. And you have other children with Tammi, don't you?
I do. We've adopted our wonderful grandchildren, Hannah Grace and Savannah.
Okay. Does Tammi also have other children?
She does.
Okay.
She has three grown children, Gabrielle, Emily, and Cody. Gabrielle is, I think she's 22, 21, 22. Emily just turned 20, and Cody, I think, is 16. 15, 16.
Have you met them?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And have you spent time with them?
Smaller amounts with Cody and Gabrielle, but Emily actually was living with us a lot over the past few months.
Okay. And does Tammi have family here also, other family?
Yes, she has sisters, and she has her mother is living here.
Tell us a little bit, you mentioned Hannah. Tell us a little bit about Hannah's adoption and how that came about.
Hannah, my daughter had some problems with alcohol, and she met up with an aspiring country musician, singer, because she loved music too. She never was in the music business, but she was, and she met up with him, and it was a whirlwind romance where she became pregnant, very hostile relationship. She then went into a rehab that my wife and I had found for her called the Renewal Center, and where they focused on women who were having children. She had Hannah while she was in the Renewal Center.
Okay, so how did Hannah come to live with you?
Hannah went, after Hannah was born, Nikki was close to being able to move into the transition house. She went into the transition house that was on the premises there, giving her a little bit more leadway or leniency, as it were. She became inebriated one evening, and DCS, which is the Department of Children's Services in Tennessee, contacted me to come and take Hannah for that time. And so I had her for a little while, and then DCS called back and said that it's a normal thing, or it's not unnormal for a person that's been inebriated like that or been an alcoholic to fall off the wagon, to find out that potentially she did the wrong thing, and then now we're going on trying to get things done correctly.
Okay, and just to clarify, when was this?
Hannah was 4 months old. So that would have been Hannah was born, I guess, 06. Hannah was born in 06. So that would have been right about the summer of 06.
Okay, and that was before you moved to Arizona?
Yes.
Okay. And so you went through the adoption process with Hannah?
We did. We were, I was prompted by DCS, in that statement I made just a minute ago, I was prompted that it was not all that uncommon for that to happen. So therefore, she did go back with my daughter for a short time, and only to fail again, my daughter. At that time, DCS called me and said that the baby is either going to go into a foster system or going to have to go with me. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. It's been a long time since I raised a little one, but ain't going into a foster system. I'll come and get her. So I came and got her, and she's been with me ever since.
Okay, and you did a formal adoption with her?
We did.
Okay, did you use an attorney for that?
We did, yes.
Okay, and did Nikki consent to that? Nikki, your daughter?
Yes.
She consent?
Yes, she did. She did consent to it.
Okay, and what about the father of Hannah? What is his situation?
The father was in jail at the time when Hannah was born, and once he got out, he decided that he wanted to be a part of her life. The court basically gave very strict instructions as to what he would have to do and what he wouldn't have to do to be able to, such as anger management, a lot of things that he was going through because he had quite an extensive record. He began to do that and would have to go. We would have to go monthly to report. It was a progress report to the court, and I think he went the first time, and then he left, and we never heard from him. He left and went somewhere after that. So he went 1 month, I believe, and then.
Have you had any contact with him since then?
Not directly. Indirectly, no, we have not had any contact with him.
Okay, well, I'll have to ask you to explain that now.
I'm sorry. When all of this started coming up, all of this case started, he tried to make accusations that we did things illegally, which, it was all documented. It was in court records. So it's not true. And he quickly went back into hiding as he was before. So, okay. I'm sorry.
So you heard from him when this case became known?
Yes.
And is Hannah's adoption final?
I'm sorry?
Was Hannah's adoption finalized?
Oh, yes. It was final.
Okay. And now tell us about Savannah and her adoption process.
Yeah.
And how old is Savannah?
Savannah's 1.5 years. She'll be 2 years the 28th. That process was, we met Nikki in the park to let her see Hannah. And she was quite gauntly, and I looked at her, and as a father's intuition, I looked at her, and she had a little paunch, and I said, "You're pregnant." And she said, "Oh, Daddy, only you would say something like that." She called me about 3 weeks later, I believe it was, 3 weeks later, and told me that she was 5 months pregnant. And she started to cry, and didn't know what she was going to do. And I said, "I know what you're going to do. I will get you an apartment, and I'll make sure you get to your doctor, and you're going to take care of this, and then we'll bring the baby home with us and let Hannah have her biological half-sister to live with us." And she consented to that, and that's the process that we went through, and she did do that.
Okay, and what about Savannah's father? Is Savannah's father the same gentleman as Hannah's father?
No, he's not. He was different. Another whirlwind relationship that my daughter seemed to get into, and he was in jail and is in jail now.
Okay. And did he consent to the adoption?
He did. I tried to help him while he was out and gave him some work, and I met him in the jail. I went to the prison to see him and told him what we were planning on doing, and he loved us and cared about us and wanted to see the best for his daughter, so he consented to that, yes.
Okay. Did you use an attorney for that process?
Yes, we did.
And what is that attorney's name?
His name is Ken Shutt.
And is Savannah's adoption actually finalized yet?
It's not final right now.
And why is that?
We feared for her safety. We wanted to keep her as under wraps as possible. We have not shown her face on Facebook. We haven't put her pictures out there because of the fact that when all of this started, we started seeing where people on the internet were talking about where Hannah was going to school. And we feared for her safety. And so we felt like that because of the fact that this would be could be potentially media circus-esque, we chose not to do that now.
Okay.
But we have all the proper papers.
And Savannah was born actually after Tammi was arrested, correct?
After?
Savannah was born after Tammi was arrested in this case.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I had to think about that for a second. Yes.
Right, because
yes,
you said Savannah was born in April or May of 2010.
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And at some point, do you remember when you and Tammi decided that Hannah needed a sibling?
After the adoption was final, first of all, I will be in my mid-70s when Hannah is still a teenager. My parents are deceased, and I don't know what I would do without my brother and sister, knowing that they're there, knowing that I can have someone that is close to me that I can call on. And I did not want Hannah to go through life as an only child. I wanted her to have, so in answer to your question, sorry for the long answer, but right after we got her, I knew that I wanted to have a sibling for her to grow up with, and she'd have with her through her life.
Okay, thank you. Let's switch gears a little bit here.
Okay.
When did Tammi meet Elizabeth Johnson?
It would have been around June of '09. Tammi went to a convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, for the business that we have now, and she met her in the airport.
Okay, and do you know how it came about that they started conversing with one another in the airport?
Tammi had to go, she'd rented a car for a week, had to go turn the car in that morning because she'd gotten there on the morning. She needed to turn it in. She had no more things going on at the convention, so she decided to go turn it in instead of having to pay for an extra day, and the possibilities of getting a standby flight was possible, but she got there and got to the gate, found out and was waiting on a potential standby, and saw Elizabeth and the baby, and Elizabeth was not happy. She was crying, and so as we would do, we believe in helping people. We believe in that. So therefore, for us to go up would not be an unnatural thing to say, is there anything we can do? Because Tammi had no idea whether she was from Indianapolis and didn't have cab fare home or what. So Tammi went up and tried to console her. She had some time left in the airport, and that's what she did.
Okay. And did you were not there at the Indianapolis airport, just to clarify?
I was not there.
Okay. But did you pick up Tammi at the Phoenix airport when she arrived here?
I did, yes I did.
Okay. And did you get a chance to meet Elizabeth at that time?
I met her, yes. She was standing at the curb near Tammi. And so I did meet her, yes.
Okay. Did you get a chance to meet Gabriel at the time, too?
I know he was there. I think he was wrapped up in a blanket. I believe it was 11 o'clock or near midnight when the flight actually got in.
Okay.
Oh, no, I don't.
I'm sorry, did you finish your answer?
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
No, I didn't actually physically see him, but I know she had him because she was holding him.
Okay. And what was your impression at that time of Elizabeth Johnson?
Scared. I thought she was very scared.
And why is that?
Well, she had indicated that to us that she didn't know if anybody was going to come pick her up. She didn't know if she would be able to get home. Didn't know if she would have a home when she got there.
Did she say these things?
She said those things. So we offered her a ride. She declined. I believe we even offered her a place to stay for the night if she needed one, and she declined that also.
Okay. Do you know if Tammi and Elizabeth exchanged any contact information at that point?
I only know what Tammi told me is that she gave her a card and said, if you guys do decide that you want to adopt the child out, which she had indicated to Tammi in that conversation, that to give us a call.
Okay. Did Elizabeth give Tammi any information that you know of?
No, she did not.
Did you see Tammi give Elizabeth any kind of a note?
No, I did not.
And how did Tammi feel about meeting Elizabeth, if you know?
I would object to hearsay on
If it's going to convey something that was said, it's going to be sustained. I don't know that for a fact yet.
Your Honor, I was just, and I can ask it differently if Your
Ask
Honor
it
is more comfortable
differently.
with that. Okay. Did you observe Tammi express anything about, without telling us anything Tammi may have said, did Tammi express anything about Elizabeth, about meeting Elizabeth? Any change in her behavior, that sort of thing?
She expressed I could see concern. I could see because she hugged her when she left. Other than the things that Tammi would say as being concerned for her and concerned for the baby and the body reactions that Elizabeth would have, but no, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Did you or Tammi hear from Elizabeth immediately after that meeting?
No, we did not.
And again, if you know, how was Tammi feeling about not hearing from Elizabeth?
How was she feeling about not hearing from her?
If you know.
I'm sorry. It must not have been God's will for us to have him, so it's business as usual. We have a business to run. We have a child at home to take care of, and so we went on with business in life. Did
you and she talk about Elizabeth at all?
In the very beginning, there was an excitement of the possibilities, but as far as, no, because we knew nothing, other than the brief time that they did have.
And after this, after June 2009, did you and Tammi make any attempts to adopt a child?
We certainly gave it, our thought. We certainly did, because again, going back to what I said a minute ago, we wanted a sibling for Hannah, and so we had given thoughts to alternatives and things that we could possibly do. We had gone to adoption, foster adopt agencies to go through the classes, which is mandatory in the state of Arizona.
Okay, and did you explore any other possibilities?
Yeah, first of all, the thoughts of all of those, we gave lots of options. Tammy's older sister even talked about, she was a surrogate twice. So we thought that there might be a possibility, but we realized that wouldn't work for us. And no, just the foster system, which is what we have to do. So.
Did you and Tammy come into contact with someone by the name of Rachel Hoover?
Tammy did first, yes.
Okay. Tell me how that came about.
Tammy was cheating on her diet and went to the Jack in the Box and saw a girl came in and was having some seizure-esque kind of things, and Tammy was afraid for her safety and the fact that Tammy has an extensive nursing background, too, allowed for her to be concerned and think maybe she could help her, and she found out that it really wasn't that big of a deal, but struck up a conversation because she had two other little children running around, too.
Rachel had two.
Rachel had two other children running
Right.
around, yes.
Okay, but you were not present at that time?
I was not present, no.
So anything you know is just what may have been told to you?
That is correct.
Okay. At some point, though, did you meet Rachel Hoover?
I did, because Tammy had indicated that Rachel had told her that day that there was a couple that was going to adopt that child that backed out because the...
I would object to a hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Without telling me what anybody said? The question was, did you meet Rachel?
I did meet Rachel.
Okay. And what were the circumstances surrounding your meeting with Rachel? Let me ask you a little better. Let me ask you a little better than that.
Sorry.
When did you meet Rachel?
I don't have that exact date in my head. I'm sorry. But we met with her and the boyfriend at Einstein Bagels and talking about the possibilities.
Okay. Was Rachel still pregnant at the time?
Yes, she was.
Okay. And was that Einstein Bagel in Phoenix somewhere?
Yeah, that was at the Einstein Bagel.
Okay. And why did you meet with them?
Because they were very excited about the fact that we had no problems with the possibilities of adopting a Down syndrome baby and wanted to meet with us to get to know us and see if we were, in their summation, a good fit or for that. And so we did meet and spent a little bit of time.
Okay. Was that the first time you met them? Was it the Einstein?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, that's the only time I met with him.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did Tammy meet with Rachel on other occasions before that?
I think, yes, I believe so. I believe she did. I think she took her to a couple of her doctor's appointments.
Okay. And did you consult with an attorney about this adoption?
Yes, Ken Shutt.
And did you end up adopting Rachel's baby?
No.
And why is that?
We were very close to that. Attorney Ken Shutt called us one morning and said they were asking for a considerable amount of money, and we said we're not going to buy a baby. So we said no.
Do you know why they wanted money?
Well, I can only surmise that they wanted money like...
Yeah, I don't want you to
understand.
surmise.
Forgive me.
Let me ask it another way. Were you told why they wanted money?
Only that Rachel was living with her aunt or her mother that was in government-assisted housing and didn't have any money. So her and her boyfriend, I guess, just wanted the money, I guess.
Okay, so that adoption fell through.
Correct.
And again, do you recall approximately when this was?
When it fell through?
Yes.
Sorry. It would have been... Yes, shortly after Elizabeth then in turn called Tammy.
Okay, so do you remember what month, what year?
Yeah, it was in December.
December of what year?
2009.
Okay, so that leads me into my next question. At some point, you and Tammy heard from Elizabeth again.
Mm-hmm.
And when was that?
That would have been December, I believe it was December 9th or 8th. I believe it was December 8th, yes.
Okay, of 2009.
Of 2009.
Okay, and do you recall who contacted whom?
Yes, Elizabeth contacted Tammy.
And do you, and what did Elizabeth tell Tammy?
I was hearing Tammy's, what I heard Tammy say is, of course I remember who you are.
Okay, so you were present when Elizabeth called
Sitting
Tammy.
beside her on the couch.
Okay, and again, you're talking over me a little bit, and I don't mean to, it's okay, I know it's.
So sorry.
I know it's hard, but again, just for the court reporter, just wait till I finish asking the question.
Okay.
Okay, so you were present when Elizabeth called Tammy?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and were you sitting where you could hear the conversation?
I was, yes.
Okay, and what did you hear?
I heard Tammy say, of course I remember who you are. And then she said, I don't know about that. And let me talk with Jack, and I'll call you back. And then she hung up the phone, basically. And that's the short story. I don't know. That's all I remember of that conversation.
Okay, did Tammy get her contact information, though, so she could call her
I
back?
think it came up on caller ID.
Okay. And what did Elizabeth want to do?
Elizabeth, Tammy giving me the other side of the conversation, she said, this is Elizabeth, do you remember me? Tammy said, yes. And she said, are you ready to adopt my son? And Tammy said, I don't know about that. And then she got off the phone and started talking with me about that.
Okay, and what did you two decide?
Well, we had just been blessed with a beautiful new home. I think my comment was, the more the merrier. But we were concerned. None of that seemed to ring really good. I mean, I know I said that response, but it still didn't ring as though something that was a responsible thing from a mother after 7 months or 8 months, not having bonded with a child. So we said that we'll come and meet you tomorrow. We were already going to be downtown anyway.
Okay, and you were still in the process of possibly adopting Rachel Hoover's baby at this moment in time, weren't you?
Yeah, we were.
Okay, so what did you, this was December 9th, right? Or December
8th. I think it was
8th, okay. So what'd you do the next day, December 9th?
We were scheduled to go to, we were trying to find a different foster to adopt agency because the one that we were at before, that we went through several of the classes, was late, and it was, Hannah was not able to get her proper sleep because we were in a car at 11 o'clock at night, and it was all the way out in Chandler. So we tried to find a place closer to us, and so we had already made arrangements to visit this other foster to adopt agency. And so after that was done, Tammy did call her and say, we'll come by and see you.
And what is a foster adopt agency?
I can't remember exactly the name of it, but I think it's Magnolia something, and I didn't look it up. I'm sorry.
Okay, and what is that? What is a foster adopt agency?
It's where you go to get trained and get certified to be able to adopt or foster children.
Okay, and was that closer to home?
Yes, it was closer to home.
Okay. Okay, so after you went to the foster to adopt agency on December 9th, what did you do?
We went by to spend a few minutes with Elizabeth.
Okay, and describe where you went to see Elizabeth. Where was that home located?
Across from the Arizona Mills. There's a trailer park there, and we went to see her there.
Okay, and how long were you there visiting Elizabeth?
3 to 4 hours.
Okay, and what did you discuss with Elizabeth during those 3 to 4 hours?
Well, first of all, it was important to me that, because, again, as I mentioned earlier, we were concerned because I understand the bonding process that goes on that should happen with children. And for someone to, at that point, be giving up her child.
And Jack, I'm so sorry. I'm going to stop you right there for 1 second. If you can, what I asked you was, what did you discuss? If you can just kind of tell us what the nature of the conversation was.
Why she would be wanting to adopt the child. Why she would want to be adopting the child out.
Okay. And she told you why?
She did.
What did she tell you?
Because she had no support. She had no support group nor support financially. And she couldn't go back to school. She couldn't afford child care. And so she was not able to survive.
Did she indicate to you whether or not she was working at that time?
She couldn't work because
Okay.
because of the fact that she couldn't afford childcare to do work.
Did she tell you anything about the father of the child?
She told us who the father was.
And who was that, please?
That was Logan McQueary.
Okay. What else did she tell you?
She told us that he had been in and out of trouble, had a fairly extensive criminal record, and that he was not around. He had a part-time job at the 99-cent store, and that he was not able to, he wasn't there to help her. That's what she said.
Okay. Was anybody else at the trailer with Elizabeth that day?
Gabriel was.
Okay. And did you get a chance to interact with Gabriel?
We did, quite a bit.
And after the 3 or 4 hour conversation that you had with Elizabeth, what happened?
She said, please take him with you.
She said, please take him with you, meaning you and Tammy.
Yes,
And I think I forgot to ask you that. You and Tammy met with Elizabeth together in
is
that
correct.
trailer. Okay.
That is correct.
And did you think that was odd?
Quite odd. Yes, I did.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, she'd only spent 3 hours with people that she was entrusting with her child. I mean, that in and of itself is odd. So I thought that was quite odd.
Okay. Did you think to refuse her?
Certainly, momentarily we did. We thought to refuse, but then we became concerned because anybody who would do something like that potentially might not be in the best place for this child to be. So that being said, we made the decision. We knew she could trust us. She didn't know she could trust us, but we felt she could trust us. So therefore, we accepted that.
So then what did you and Tammy do next?
Well, I said to Tammy, we're babysitters. We're going to babysit because obviously there's something going wrong here. This is not right. So then, feeling as though there could be something not good and not right with this situation, we felt out of concern for the child that we should have a temporary guardianship paper signed and notarized so that in the event that the mother was to do something like leave or not be able to be found or something like that, that we would be able to get hospitalization or whatever with the child if the child was needed.
Okay, and what made you think to get a temporary guardianship?
Just concern for the child. I mean, concern for the child. I mean, we wanted to make sure that the child was able to be taken care of. So.
Okay, and did you get a document? Did you
We
get that
did.
document? And okay,
So sorry.
did you get where did you get the document from? The temporary guardianship document. Where did you get that from?
It was sent to us by Ken Shutt, our attorney, because we hadn't gone through all of the classes for the FOST-ADOPT system. So therefore, if in fact we were going to bring Rachel's baby home from the hospital, we would have to have a temporary guardianship paper. So he had sent it to us as a Word document, and so it was reconfigurable, as it were.
Okay, and when had he sent you the temporary guardianship document?
It was several days because we weren't sure when Rachel's baby was going to be born. It was due any day. So it was several days. I would have to say the first week, certainly before we went there. So it would have to have been either the end of November or the first week of December.
Okay, and did you have the form with you at Elizabeth's?
We did.
Okay, and why would you have that form with you at Elizabeth's?
Because Tammy had, and I had forgotten this when we had a meeting the other day, but Tammy had conversation with Elizabeth, and there was the possibility that Elizabeth was going to say, take my child with you. And once again, in order to be prepared, we were trying to be prepared. We were trying to be good stewards. And so that's the reason that Tammy printed out that document and took it with us when we went.
Okay, and Your Honor, may I please approach the witness?
You may.
Jack, I'm showing you what has been admitted as Exhibit 148. Do you recognize that document?
That is the temporary guardianship power of attorney.
And is that the document that Elizabeth signed on the date that it says on the document?
It is.
And what is the date on that document?
9th day of December, 2009.
May I approach again, Your Honor? And Your Honor, just for the record, that this document has already been published to the jury, so I won't waste their time having them look at it again.
Okay.
And Jack, what was the purpose of this document, again, for clarification?
Because we didn't know the mental state of the mother, we wanted to ensure the best for the child. And if something were to happen, heaven forbid, that something should happen and the child get hurt, we would not be able to get care for the child without having that.
Okay. And so what did you do with Gabriel at this point?
Sorry, repeat.
What did you do with Gabriel at this point?
We strapped his little car seat in the car and we went home.
Did you have any baby supplies on hand at home?
We stopped on the way home.
And where did you go?
Oh, I'm sure Walmart. I'm sure we did.
Okay, and what kinds of things did you pick up at Walmart?
We had to get diapers and lotion and a few things like that.
Okay. Now, do you remember anything unusual happening the night that you brought him home?
It was about 11 p.m. or so, maybe midnight, that we got a phone call. I was asleep. We were asleep in bed. Tammy heard the phone ring, ran downstairs to answer the phone, and it was Detective Aguilera.
Okay, and what did you learn from Detective Aguilera?
That where Logan was working was a domestic disturbance created by Elizabeth Johnson, and they needed to find out where the child was and see where the child was.
Okay. Did you speak to Detective Aguilera or did Tammy?
On the phone, Tammy did.
Okay. And what happened next?
They showed up at our house. I overheard voices downstairs about 1:30 or so a.m. I came and they were there. They needed to verify.
Hang on, who's they?
Sorry. Detective Aguilera and one or two other officers. I don't really remember right now, but I know there was others with him. And they were there downstairs.
Okay, do you know why they were there?
They were there because of the domestic that was going on with Elizabeth and Logan, and that Elizabeth finally told where they were after several hours, I guess, or a long time. She told where baby was and told us with us, and they called us, and they had to come there and verify that he was in fact with us and safe.
Okay, and where was Gabriel when the police came to your home?
He was in the bassinet and next to our bed upstairs.
Okay, and did Detective Aguilera confirm that?
He did.
Okay, and where was Gabriel when the police left your house?
Detective Aguilera said, I've been with the parents, I've been with the mother, and I've been with the father, and the baby belongs here, and he left.
I would object to hearsay.
Sustained. Make sure you answer the question. The question didn't ask you to say what somebody else said. She asked you where the baby was, so make sure you answer the question and don't relate what somebody else told you.
And yeah, remember, Jack, you cannot tell us what somebody else told you.
I got you.
Okay.
Sorry.
The question was, I'll repeat the question for you, where was Gabriel when Detective Aguilera and the other police left your home?
In the same bassinet
Asleep?
as he was.
Probably not knowing what had happened.
Right, not knowing what happened.
Okay. And how long did Gabriel live with you?
Approximately 9 days.
Okay. And do you remember the dates that Gabriel lived with you?
I'm a little sketchy on dates. I know 9th because of what you just showed me there. And then it would have been a week from that following Friday was the last time we saw him. So I guess 17th or 18th. I'm not exactly sure of the date. Forgive me.
Okay. And during that time frame that Gabriel lived with you, December 9th through December 17th or 18th, did you find out anything additional about Logan McQueary?
Well, yeah, we did our own slight research and tried to find out and pull up police reports and that sort of stuff that we're all privy to, and it basically confirmed what she had shown to us.
Okay, and when you say we, you mean you and
Tammy and I.
Okay, and why did you research Logan McQueary?
Well, because she said he was the father, and she had told us that there was a part of us trying to get a hold of him. It was a part of us trying to find out, because she said she couldn't get a hold of him. She didn't know how to get a hold of him. So there was a part of us wanting, and we also wanted to verify, because we didn't understand her mental state, to be honest with you. So we were trying to determine whether or not he was what she said he was, I guess.
And so during December 9th through December 17th or 18th, what was your understanding of what Logan was like?
That he had gone through a lot of problems as a youngster, that he had been incarcerated, that he had had felony arrests, and that's what we had understood.
Now tell us a little bit about what Gabriel's life was like during those 9 days that he lived with you.
Oh, he was a joy. I tried real hard to love on him a lot because I understand or felt there possibly was a lack of bonding that had gone on. So I held him and kissed him a bunch. We played in the backyard. We took him to see Santa, which was a monumental thing. It's year 1. So took him to see Santa and just did everything, and him and Hannah played and just had lots of fun.
Did you take him to visit Elizabeth during this time?
Yeah, several times we did.
Okay. And you and Tammy together?
Every time we were together, yes, except for one time.
And that one time just Tammy took him to visit?
That's correct.
Okay, and how did those visits go with Elizabeth?
Every time we went to see Elizabeth, we would load up everything that she had given us for Gabriel, because we felt certain that at some point she's going to come to her senses. Some point she'll come to her senses and want her child back. One time that we went, she called us and said, I need to see him. We went there with all of his clothes and everything. She grabbed him and said, I just needed to see that he was okay and he was loved. And now she said, go back to your home.
And during these visits, did Elizabeth ever say anything more about Logan to you?
Objection to hearsay.
That question didn't call for hearsay, as it was asked.
You can answer.
Again, please.
During those visits with Elizabeth, did she ever talk anything more about Logan?
She did. Most of it was about...
Okay, but don't tell me what she said. Okay.
Yes, she did.
What was your understanding of Logan at that point?
She was trying to get him to get on board, as it were, with the concept of adopting the child.
Did she, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yes.
Did she indicate to you how she felt about Logan?
Her and Logan, according to what she had said, they were not a couple. She had even indicated he wasn't the father. But that being said, she said she even moved into the trailer because there was a no felon policy within the agreement that he couldn't be there. He wasn't part of the equation as far as we knew.
Okay. Did she indicate to you how she felt about Logan's father?
She was frightened of him.
Did she indicate to you that anything had been filed with the court?
We did find out, I believe it would have been Tuesday or so, following the 9th, the 13th or so, I guess the 13th or the 14th, that she had to answer a complaint that he had filed with the court.
Okay. Did you see that paperwork?
I did not personally see that paperwork.
Now, at some point, Elizabeth and Logan went to court, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember about when that was?
Approximately the 15th. I believe it was on a Thursday. I'm sorry for my potential date, but I don't want to give you the wrong information. I believe it was on a Thursday.
Okay, and that, again, would have been December 2009.
That is correct.
Okay. Was Gabriel still living with you at that point?
He was.
I should say with you and Tammy.
Yes, with me.
Okay. And did you and Tammy go to court with Elizabeth that day?
We didn't go to court with her. We were to meet her outside of court.
Okay. Okay, so did you meet her outside of court?
We did.
Okay, and did you bring the kids with you?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so Gabriel was with you?
Yes, he was.
And Hannah was with you? Okay.
Yes.
Was that a yes?
That was a yes. I did
Okay.
say that.
Okay, and so you rode separately, and did you meet with Elizabeth before she went in for the hearing?
No, we did not.
Okay, so what was the plan then for that day that you remember, as far as meeting up with her around the court hearing?
The plan was that they were to meet, they were to go to court, and then after court, we, along with Elizabeth, was to meet Logan and Frank to talk about the potentials of adopting the child.
Okay, and during the hearing, where were you, Tammy, and the kids?
We were outside. I was parking the car.
Okay, outside of the
The courthouse.
Outside of the courthouse?
Yes.
Okay, and at some point, you met up with Elizabeth?
Yeah, out front of the courthouse
Okay, after the hearing?
after the hearing was over.
Okay, tell us what happened.
Well, we were excited because we were going to get to meet Logan for the first time. We were excited about that opportunity to talk with him and meet him and potentially let him see that we are good people, hopefully. But that never happened.
Okay, tell us what did happen.
Tammy jumped out. She saw Elizabeth coming down the steps. I let Tammy out of the car. She ran up, and I went to park the car. And then I was going to get the children out. I got them out of the car and came back. And Elizabeth was very excited because she said that I think she won or he didn't get anything or something like that. I forget exactly the way she phrased it. But I wasn't concerned about that. I was concerned about when are we going to meet the father. And she said him and Frank just stormed past them, which gave further credence to the fact that potentially he didn't get anything. I mean,
Okay, so you did not get to meet Logan that day?
did not get to meet Logan.
Now, what was your understanding of what happened at that hearing that day?
My understanding that the judge basically, as he should have, I think, told them that there's a child involved here.
And again, you can't tell us what somebody else said.
Right.
The question was?
It's my understanding that Logan got no rights to anything, that they set a court date, I believe, for the hearing for, I believe, March, if I'm not mistaken, of 10.
Okay, and where did you get that information
From Elizabeth.
And did you ever see any court documents about what happened at that hearing?
I did not, no.
Did you ever, let's say that day, did you look up anything to see what might have happened, any court document?
We tried, but I would assume that it wouldn't be that readily available. But we did try because we were concerned and we wanted to see what was going on.
Okay, and how did you feel when Elizabeth gave you that information?
That information wasn't important to me, whether he won or didn't win. That was not what's important. What was important, the information that was important is when can we get together and talk about this and figure out what side of the equation he's on, and because we know what side she's on. So we were disappointed that we weren't able to meet with him. It had nothing to do with what happened with him in court.
Okay, and what happened after that conversation with Elizabeth after the hearing? What'd you do?
She left, went her own way, and had us, because once again, we thought that she would probably take Gabriel with her because she had just potentially won, as it were. But she put him back in the car and he went home with us.
She put him back in his car.
My car.
What happened next?
She called Tammy because I guess we were the only people that she felt she could talk to.
And when was that?
That would have been that evening.
Okay.
That evening. She called Tammy, and she was very confused. She indicated that she didn't really know what the judge had said. She indicated that she didn't know if she was supposed to let him see Logan, the father, or not to see him, or whether they're supposed to wait till March, till the hearing was. She was just uncertain as to what she was supposed to do.
Okay. And were you party to that conversation?
No, I was not.
Okay. So what happened after that conversation?
We really didn't have a choice in that matter. So we indicated, we being Tammy and I, indicated that, make a decision what you're going to do and let us know, and we'll do whatever is supposed to be done or whatever your decision is.
Okay. And did Elizabeth make a decision about what to do?
She did.
Okay. And what did she tell you to do?
She called us the next morning and said that she's going to let him go be with his father for a visitation for the weekend.
Okay. And then were arrangements made with her?
Yeah, she asked us to bring him. She said that Logan was going to pick him up at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, and that we need to bring him there then.
Bring who? Where?
Bring Gabriel to her so that she can then give Logan start visitation on Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
Okay.
I said, no. I said, I'm not going to get these children up, what would be 5:30 in the morning, bathe them, feed them breakfast, and have them to Tempe by 8 o'clock. So you're going to have to, and there was an ulterior motive. I wanted him to sleep the night with her. I wanted Gabriel to be at her house that night.
Okay, so at some point did you exchange Gabriel
We did.
with Elizabeth? Okay.
Yes.
And when did that take place?
That happened at dusk. I'm saying 7 o'clock, between 6 and 7 p.m. On, I guess, the 18th, that Friday.
Okay, so it was Friday night.
Friday evening, yes.
And Elizabeth had indicated that she was giving the baby to Logan on Saturday.
That is correct.
Okay. So tell me about the details of that exchange. Where were you?
Our home was quite a ways out of town, so therefore we were already planned on being in to deliver product to our businesses. So we said, she gave us her grandfather's address, I believe, which is in Scottsdale, and I said, why don't you just find a more local or something better for us to meet at, so that we don't have to find a house back in a subdivision or something. So she picked out a location.
Okay, what was that location?
It was called the Glass and Grass Church that was on McDonald.
Okay, and why did she pick that location, if you know?
Well, I mean, churches typically have big parking lots, easy to find. So I'm going to assume that was the reason for that.
Okay, but that was her choice to
It was
meet
her
at the
choice.
church?
Yes, ma'am, it was her choice.
Okay. And did you give Gabriel back to Elizabeth at that time?
We did.
And why did you give Gabriel back to Elizabeth at that time?
Because Logan's his father. He was going to go see his father, and that's where he should be.
Did you have an understanding with Elizabeth as to when you might get Gabriel back?
We were supposed to pick him up at 8 a.m. on Monday morning.
And so the last time you saw Gabriel was that Friday night when you dropped him off with Elizabeth.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you know that Elizabeth was going to leave the state?
No.
Now, after you gave Gabriel back to Elizabeth, did you ever check on them?
During that 8 days or 9 days, we had bonded. I had bonded with him quite, and we were concerned. Yes, we started calling.
Okay. Why were you concerned?
We were concerned because of the fact that he was whining when we gave him to her. He was
what?
He was whining. He was whimpering. He was wanting to be back with Hannah and me and Tammy.
Was Hannah there at the exchange also?
Yes, she was.
Okay. So tell us how you, or when you first started checking on them.
Elizabeth didn't have a cell phone, or at least a cell phone that she indicated to us. It was a landline. So we called, probably knowing that it would take her an hour or so to get home. We did our errands and called her home and left a message on her answering machine.
Okay. Did she call you back?
She did not.
So what did you do then?
Left another message a little later.
Okay. And again, do you remember what day this was?
That would have been on Friday evening.
Okay. Right after you had dropped Gabriel off with her?
Yeah, within a few hours, yes.
Okay. And so you made another attempt to call?
We did.
Was it you or Tammy that called?
I'm sure it was Tammy. I might have at some point left a message, but that night it was Tammy, I'm sure.
Okay. And do you know how many times Tammy tried to call Elizabeth that night?
I want to say 2, but I'm not positive.
Did she leave messages both times?
We did.
Did you hear back from Elizabeth Friday night?
We did not.
Okay. And how were you feeling about it at that point?
Concerned. We were wondering if maybe our fears might be somewhat true, that Elizabeth is not giving us the true story. And I say that because If she's not home, then that means she's out somewhere. And if she's out somewhere, then that means that she's not, she's supposed to have the child with her that night. So what's going on? We were concerned for him.
Okay. So what happened the next day?
We started calling again, first thing in the morning.
Okay. And were you able to reach Elizabeth? Were you able to reach Elizabeth?
We were not.
Okay. So what did you do next?
Left messages.
Okay. And how many messages did you leave? And that would have been Saturday?
That was on Saturday.
How many messages did you leave for Elizabeth on Saturday?
I want to say 3 or 4. But I'm not positive how many. I know we left message after message.
Okay. And after you left 3 or 4 messages, what did you do?
Continued to leave messages on Sunday. And they began to get more aggressive as things would go on, because we were saying to her, you know, if you don't want, the message was, if you don't want to tell us that you and Logan, because we were feeling like that possibly her and Logan had gotten back together, which is wonderful. But all you need to do is tell us. Mm-hmm. And so we were leaving messages of if you've done that, just call us and let us know. We're fine, but just let us know that you and Gabriel are okay.
Did you make any attempts to contact her at the trailer?
Personally, no. We did not personally go to the trailer, but the phone was in the trailer.
Yes. So you didn't go by the trailer to see her?
No, it's way out of the way. No, we didn't.
At some point, did you try and contact Logan?
We had no means of how to contact Logan. According to what Elizabeth had indicated to us, he didn't have a call, didn't have a phone. We didn't, certainly during that weekend, we didn't have any idea that how to get a hold of him.
Did you try to go to his place of work?
Not that day. Not until Monday.
Okay, tell us about that.
Tammy come downstairs early, completely dressed, and I said, "Why are you dressed?" She said, "We're going to do what we said we was going to do." And I said, "What's that?" She said, "We're supposed to meet him. We're supposed to pick him up at 8 o'clock this morning." And I said, "Tammy, we've tried all weekend long to get a hold of them. They're not calling us back. We're not going to make that trip." She said, "We gave our word, and that's what we're going to do." And so I got dressed and got Hannah dressed, and we took off to Tempe.
Okay, and where did you go in Tempe?
We went immediately to the trailer.
Okay, and what did you find when you got to the trailer?
There was nobody there. We knocked on the door, and nobody came to the door.
Okay, so what did you do next?
I think I went next door to a neighbor. There was another door opening that was facing her trailer. I went to the trailer next door, got no answer. There was nobody on the other side of her and nobody across from her, so that was the only trailer we really had that could have possibly seen. So we went to, thinking that maybe she had gone to pick him up and just hadn't gotten back yet, we went to Denny's and had breakfast.
Okay, did you speak to any of the neighbors? Did you speak to any of the neighbors?
No one came to the door.
After you went to Denny's for breakfast, what did you do?
Went back to the trailer, trying again to no avail.
So what did you do then?
Well, the only other option we had at that point was to try and see if there might be a chance of us being able to find the father. Tammy and I discussed that for a moment, and we had remembered that when Elizabeth was trying to file her response to Logan's petition, that he had put on there a P.O. box as a return address. So she was trying to find, she called me at my office asking me to look up the 99-cent store where he had a part-time job to get the address in Tempe. And I remembered that as being his place of work. So we put that in the GPS and went to find where he worked.
Okay, so did you go to that 99-cent store?
We did.
And that was on that Monday?
That was on that Monday.
Okay. And were you able to talk to Logan that day?
They said they hadn't heard from Logan all weekend. And we talked to the manager.
So, did you ever make contact with Logan?
We had left a card with the manager saying that if she saw Logan to let him know. I don't know if that was the way that he was able to, but he called, if I'm not mistaken, he called us later on that afternoon.
Okay, and then again, that would have been Monday,
Monday.
following the Friday that you dropped Gabriel off with Elizabeth.
That's correct.
Okay, and so Logan called you. Logan called you.
Logan called us.
Okay, and did he talk to you or Tammy?
He called on Tammy's phone, and so he talked with Tammy.
Okay, and do you know what they talked about?
All I remember hearing is, please let me know you've got Gabriel and he's okay. And
And did Logan indicate that he had Gabriel with him?
he said I was going to ask you the same question.
Okay, and were you able to figure out where Elizabeth and Gabriel had gone?
There was just a bunch of brainstorming going on. What he had told us, what he had done to try to find her, because he didn't have him for the weekend. Told us what he had done and the measures that he'd gone through to try to find her, and there was just a bunch of brainstorming going on.
Did how many times did Logan and Tammy talk that day?
I don't know how many times. I do know it was over an hour.
Okay, and did you ever personally talk to Logan that day?
I'm not sure if it was that day. I'm not exactly sure when I actually first started talking. I'm sure I did. Now I'm beginning to. I did at some point. I talked with Logan. The whole man-to-man concept. I did.
Okay, and so were you and he able to come up with any ideas for how to find Elizabeth?
No, not that day.
Okay, was there another day? Did you talk to him? Let me put it this way: did you talk to him the next day, which would have been Tuesday?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and did he give you any information on that Tuesday about Elizabeth?
He told us that he had seen a MySpace entry and that she had, on there, it indicated, because it's time-stamped, I think it said 11 hours ago. And he said, I saw an entry that she made reference to Bubby beginning to crawl or something like that. And we said, I'm going to go check and see what about that. So I went into my computer and started looking up Elizabeth Johnson. That's not all that uncommon of a name, so I had to go through several on MySpace. It took me a little while, but I did find her, and it did say that.
Okay, and what did you do with that information?
I sent her a message.
You sent Elizabeth a message?
I sent her a message, yes.
And do you remember what that message was?
I do. Paraphrased. I don't know exactly, but the basis was, Elizabeth, please let us know that you and Gabriel are okay. Call us because we have something really serious we need to talk about.
Okay. Did you communicate this information to Logan?
Yeah, I did. I told him that I had sent it, and
Okay. What happened next?
about 15 minutes later, a text come in to Tammy's phone. Said, yeah, I'm sorry. You want the content?
I'm sorry, you're sorry, what?
I said, the text came into Tammy's phone.
Okay, who had texted Tammy?
Elizabeth had texted Tammy's phone about 15 minutes after I made that message.
Okay. Do you know if at some point during that day, whether or not Elizabeth had contacted Logan directly?
I have no idea.
Okay. And what were the contents of that text to Tammy from Elizabeth? She
said, yes, I should have told you. We're okay. Everything's fine. Jack said that there's problems. What's up?
Okay. Did she tell you where she was?
No, she did not.
Okay. What happened following the text that Tammy sent to Elizabeth?
Tammy sent a text back to Elizabeth because I asked her to send one back saying too much for a text. too much for me to tell her on a text, call us. And Elizabeth called. The phone rang and she called.
Okay, how soon after that text did Elizabeth call?
Immediately.
Okay, and at that point, did she tell you where she was?
She did not.
Okay, were you able to ascertain where she was?
General locale, because when she called on a 210 area code. So I believe as I was talking with Elizabeth and telling Elizabeth the problems she was facing if she didn't get back here, Tammy went in, I believe, and looked up where is 210, and it came up with San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, did she tell, but Elizabeth did not tell you directly she was in San Antonio, did she?
No.
Did she tell you why she was refusing to tell you where she was?
She was afraid. She was afraid that we would tell Logan and that she would that her life or her safety would be at risk.
Okay, did she tell you anything else during that conversation?
She did. She said that she had found someone that was going to give her new identity. She was going to go underground. We'd never hear from her again. And she was going to change her hair color and change everything about it, and nobody'd ever hear from her again.
Now, did you have this conversation with her, or did Tammy?
We both had the conversation with her, because a lot of time we would take and put the phone on speakerphone.
Okay, and was she on speakerphone during this conversation?
I believe so, yes.
Did you personally talk to her?
I did.
Okay, what did you tell her?
I told her she had to come home, that this was not the way to do this. It's not, you can't run. What happens, I think we even indicated by speakerphone, what happens if he breaks his leg? You're taking him to somewhere and trying to get him in a hospital. So we were doing everything we could to get her to come back.
Okay, so how did the conversation end with Elizabeth that day? And again, this is the Tuesday following the Friday that she left with him?
Correct.
Well, that you gave Gabriel to Elizabeth?
Correct.
Okay. How did that conversation end?
She was upset because at the time when she did call in with the 210 area code, I picked up the phone and immediately called Logan.
Okay. And so...
And she was upset. Forgive me.
I'm sorry?
She was upset because we told her that we had told Logan.
Okay. But before that, so after you talked to Elizabeth, you provided Logan with the information that you had?
Yes.
Okay. And did you give him Elizabeth's phone number?
We did.
And that would have been the phone number with the 210 area code?
That is correct.
Now, at some point, well, let me ask you this. Did you tell Elizabeth anything other than to come home?
No. It was come home. I mean, that's not the way to do things. I mean, if you're going to, no, come home.
Okay, so you spoke to Logan then that very same day?
Correct.
And that's when you called him and provided him with Elizabeth's phone number?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you have a conversation with him that day?
I did.
And what were the contents of that conversation?
I told him because of the volatility or the volatile relationship that they do have, that she's angry, that we gave the number. I told him, you need to find her. She's in San Antonio, Texas. It's not that big of a town. Your father's a police officer. He can enlist help. Get somebody to go get her. And then I gave him the phone number. I made him promise to not do that, not go get her, to do things the correct way and keep her from, because we were under the threat that she was going to go underground. She was going to change her identity. So.
And Your Honor, this might be a good point at which to break.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch break. We will come back around 1:30, so we'll see you then, and remember the admonition. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Let the record reflect the presence of the jury panel, Ms. Smith and counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hope you had a good lunch. We are back. We left off with the direct examination of Mr. Smith, so we'll pick back up there. And Ms. Phillips, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Jack, before we broke for lunch, we were talking a little bit about your conversation with Elizabeth when you and Tammy were able to ascertain her phone number in San Antonio, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I had asked you if you called Logan.
Yes, I did call Logan.
Okay, and when did you call Logan?
I called him as Tammy was on the phone with her.
Okay, and did you give Logan Elizabeth's contact information?
I did.
Okay, do you remember what information you gave Logan?
I gave him the town that we assumed that she was in because of the 210, and then we gave him the phone number.
What else did you tell him?
We told him at that time that she was threatening to run, to go underground and change her identity, and that we needed to work as best we could as a team for him to go and find her, and we would keep her surfaced from going underground.
Okay, and do you remember how long you talked to Logan that day?
I'm not sure how long in that particular conversation, but I'm sure that we had little follow-up conversations after that.
Okay, how did you feel about Logan at that point, after that first conversation with him?
I feel like I had every reason to believe that he wasn't what we may have been told he was, because she was gone and he was still here. So we felt like that possibly we were told misinformation about his character.
Okay, can you clarify that a little bit? In what way do you mean that?
Well, because of what it felt like his concern for Gabriel, and the fact that he was calling us and seemed like he was trying to find him.
Okay. What do you remember happening next after you talked to Logan that day?
I remember subsequent phone calls with both he and I and Tammy and him.
Okay. And were there other calls with Elizabeth?
There were calls with Elizabeth. Yes, there were.
Okay. And just to clarify for us, the phone calls that we're talking about are before December the 27th, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you remember about how many more phone conversations you had with Logan?
Probably 3 or 4.
Did you ever talk to him about signing adoption papers? No, because there were no papers to sign. Did you ever talk to him about the possible adoption of Gabriel?
We did.
Okay. Did you personally speak to him about the possible adoption of Gabriel?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
And did you speak to him about you and Tammy possibly adopting Gabriel?
I did. Yes, I did.
Okay. What do you remember about that conversation?
I remember there being relatively vague comment, from Logan as he was thinking about it. He had even said that the night before, which would have been Monday night, that he and his father had stayed up most of the night talking about the possibilities of that. And any conversation I had with him at that point was more to try to give him to seem credibility, that we were giving him, that we were credible people, that we were good people, honest people, trying to give him confidence that if he was going to make that decision, that we might be a good candidate for that.
Did you try to pressure him in any way to sign adoption papers?
No.
Do you remember a conversation where you mentioned to him something about you not wanting your son to grow up in a trailer park?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I apologize.
What did you mean by that?
At that time, it was apparent to us that Logan was not living in the trailer with Elizabeth. And so my choice of words were to say, grow up with us versus in a trailer park, really could have been just as easily said, do you want him to grow up with us or do you want him to grow up with her? Because we both had seemed to have lost complete respect for her.
Okay. And did you ever meet in person with Logan?
Didn't get that. No.
Sorry?
No, I didn't get the opportunity, no.
Okay. Did you have other phone conversations with Elizabeth again prior to December 27th?
Yes, we did.
You personally, and we're talking
Yes,
about
I
you
did.
personally.
I did, yes, I did.
Okay. Did you ever discuss the possibility with Elizabeth of her going to Tennessee?
I did.
Okay. And do you remember what that discussion was?
I do. Elizabeth was scared. She was frightened. And threatening to run and go underground again. That was a place where I knew that I could potentially give her and help her be safe. If she's going to run, common sense would be, I think, to know where she's running to so that we could keep her surfaced so that Logan could get his son back.
Okay. Were you trying to hide her in Tennessee?
No.
And why Tennessee?
Well, that was the only place I knew people.
Do you still own property there?
I do.
Did you give Elizabeth any specific addresses in Tennessee?
No.
Did you give Elizabeth any specific phone numbers to call in Tennessee?
I did not.
Do you remember what you told her about Tennessee?
I told her I had property there. That if she was going to run, it would be best to go somewhere safe where you know people. But that never materialized. That never happened.
Okay. Do you remember her response to that conversation?
Yeah. Nothing. She didn't respond one way or the other. Very flatlined.
Okay. And other than the Tennessee conversation that you had with Elizabeth, did you have other conversations, you and Elizabeth, directly between December 22nd and December 27th, 2009?
Specific days, times, I do not remember. I'm certain that I did because I was trying very diligently to help her to understand that her only option was to come back and do the right thing here.
Now, at some point, the police came to your house again, correct?
Correct.
And that was on December the 27th?
Correct.
Did they, and it was the Tempe police, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And do you
Yes, ma'am.
remember how many officers came that day?
2, maybe 3.
Okay. Did they tell you why they came to your house on December 27th?
As best I remember, they indicated that they was just trying to see if there was any information that we could lend to what was going on.
Okay. Did they tell you what was going on?
They did, yes, they did.
Okay. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, that she had sent a text message to Logan and said that she had killed the baby.
Did you give the police any information?
Yes, I believe that's the time that we gave them all of our text messages. They took pictures of all of our text. We gave them access to our computer and anything like that.
Okay. Did you let them search your house?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did they
Yes.
have a search warrant at that time?
No,
Did you give them Elizabeth's phone number?
we did.
Did you give them every piece of information that you thought might help
Every piece.
What was your understanding of why they were at your house on December 27th?
Just to gain information.
Okay, was it to look for Gabriel?
No, they didn't say they were there looking for Gabriel. No, they just were there looking at information, asking us questions.
Okay, because at that point it was well established that Gabriel was no longer at your home, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Do you remember how long they were at your house that day?
Best guess, a couple of hours.
Okay, and did the Tempe police come back to your house on another day, on December 31st?
They did.
Do you remember how many officers came that day?
There was 2.
Okay, and do you remember who they were?
Yes, Detective Ramirez. And Ryburn or Riker or something. So there's 2.
Detective Ryberg?
Ryburn, yeah.
Okay, and that was the first time you actually met Detective Ramirez, correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, though, Tammy had conversations with Detective Ramirez prior to December 31st.
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. And on December 31st, were you expecting the Tempe police to come to your house?
No, we were not.
Did you let them in?
Yes, yes, we did.
Did you answer their questions freely?
We did.
Honestly?
We did, yes.
Now, did they take any physical property from you on that day?
I don't remember any physical property being taken that day. No, I do not.
Okay. And do you remember how long Detectives Ramirez and Ryberg were there that day?
Seems like it was probably 2 or 3 hours again at that point, somewhere in that area.
Okay, and then the Tempe police came back a third time, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And that was on January the 14th, 2010?
Yes.
And tell me about that day. Tell me about the police that came to your house on January the 14th. What time was it?
It was about around 9 o'clock, I believe, somewhere in that area. We were quite shocked because we live out and went to the door, turned on the light, and it seems like there was about 6 SWAT-type officers there.
Okay, and what do you mean by that?
Well, they had big guns, and they had vests. They had, like, bullet vests. They were quite scary people. But
Were you expecting them?
no, we were not.
Okay. Do you remember what they told you?
They said that they were there to secure our house, that Detective Ramirez was getting a search warrant, and that she would follow with a search warrant.
Okay. And were you allowed to leave your home at that time?
No.
Were these officers searching your home at this time?
No, they were not. No, they were not.
Okay. What were they doing?
Some of them were around, it seemed like around the perimeters. I remember seeing 4 stand behind us in a flanked position, with the hands behind them, behind us as we were on the couch watching TV. I could see them in the reflection of the TV. Sorry.
Okay. And when you say we were watching TV, who was watching TV?
Tammy, myself, and Hannah.
Okay, and did the police come with a search warrant at some point later that evening?
Later that evening, they did, yes.
Okay, and do you remember what time that was?
Best I remember, it was around 11:30 or midnight.
Okay, and what happened when I say they, do you remember who it was that came with the search warrant?
But the search warrant was Detective Ramirez.
Okay, and were there any other officers with Detective Ramirez?
There were. It seems like there were 2 or 3 officers or detectives that came with because that's who was conducting the search. Then we had the police officers basically holding us to our couch.
And let me backtrack for just a second, Jack. When the initial officers said, we're waiting for a search warrant to be issued, what was your response?
My initial response was, why wait on a search warrant? Go ahead and start now. Do it. We're not hiding anything. Go ahead and start searching. And that way you can get out of here quicker.
And what was their response?
Can't do that. Have to wait.
Okay, so when Detective Ramirez got there with the warrant, I'm sorry. When Detective Ramirez arrived there with the warrant, what happened? Just describe for us what happened.
She took Tammy off into another area. The detectives that were there began to systematically and regimentedly take apart our house from room to room, drawer to drawer.
Do you know what they were looking for?
I guess looking for any information that we might have, or maybe looking for Gabriel. I mean, they never told me what they was looking for. There was a search warrant, so they cloned our computer. They took cloned our cell phones. I mean, we did everything that we were supposed to do, or they could have done it a lot earlier.
How long were the police at your house that night? Do you remember?
I'm not sure, because to be honest with you, I fell asleep part of the time on the couch. It seems like I remember it being over about 2:30 or 3 a.m., something like that. But I'm not positive.
And where was Hannah during the search?
She was on my lap. She couldn't go to bed.
Now, did you ever go to the Tempe Police Department to answer questions?
We did.
And do you remember, was this before or after the search warrant?
I think it was after the search warrant.
Did you go voluntarily?
Yes, we did.
Was there ever an occasion when the police came to your home and you or Tammy did not let them in?
Never.
Was there ever an occasion when the police called on the telephone and you or Tammy refused to speak to them?
Never.
Now, Jack, do you know anyone in San Antonio?
Yes, I do.
And did you ever tell Elizabeth that you had a friend in San Antonio?
Either I told her or Tammy told her, but I don't actually specifically remember saying to her, I have a friend in San Antonio. I don't remember that, but she was made aware of that, yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was she ever given that person's contact information?
She was never.
And we talked a little bit this morning about Ken Shutt, your adoption attorney. Mm-hmm. Was that a yes?
That was yes. I'm sorry.
Did you ever have any conversations with Ken about Elizabeth?
I don't remember specifically having any conversations with Ken. I know Tammy did, but I didn't.
Did you speak to the media about this case?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember when that was?
Pretty much the next day after she called Logan and told him she'd killed the baby, they showed up at our front door.
Okay. And did you do some television interviews?
We did, yes.
And did you do more than one television interview?
A bunch, yes.
And why did you do television interviews, Jack?
We were told that the first 48 hours are the most important in the efforts to find a missing child. We were quite reluctant because to do that because we shouldn't have been, I guess, the point people, but they said there was nobody else to talk to, nobody else would talk to them, and we needed to try to help find the baby.
And do you remember at what point you learned that Gabriel was no longer with Elizabeth?
I don't remember exactly when I knew that particular, no, I don't remember exactly when that happened.
Do you know where Gabriel Johnson is?
No, I do not know where he is.
And Jack, has this case affected your life?
Yes, ma'am, it has.
How has this case affected your life?
Well, we lost our big, beautiful home. Our business is down to about a fifth of what it was. We are constantly concerned about protection for our children. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Ms. Romano?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me okay from here?
Barely.
Okay.
Not real well, no.
I'll come over here. Can you hear me better now?
I can, yes.
Okay. So we've learned a little bit about you and Tammy here today, how you met her. You met her in Tennessee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you were living at the...
Oh, I'm sorry.
To get used to it, you can't say uh-huh or mm-hmm. You've got to answer out loud, yes or no. Go ahead.
That's where you were living at the time you met her, correct?
Yes.
And that's where you were living at the time that you married her?
Yes.
All right. And at some point you moved to the state of Arizona, I believe you said about 6 years ago?
5 or 6 years, yes.
All right. But even though you moved to the state of Arizona, you still maintain connections with the state of Tennessee, correct?
That is correct.
You still have family there?
I do.
In fact, do some of your children still live there? Do they all still live there?
2 of them do.
2 of them do? Okay. And you still have property there?
I do.
A home?
A home.
And your son has a condo there, I believe?
His mother owns the condo, but he lives in the condo, yes.
Okay. And you still continue to visit there, correct?
From time to time, I do go back, yes,
Okay.
but
All right.
it's
So you
not a
still have
visitation.
connections to that state?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right. You didn't just leave it behind?
Correct.
And in fact, your daughter Hannah was adopted in the state of Tennessee, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated earlier that an attorney was used in this, for that adoption.
That is correct.
And I would assume it was a Tennessee attorney.
That's correct.
Do you recall the name of that attorney?
It was a lady. It was a female attorney. And I don't remember her name right off the top of my
Okay.
head.
All right. Now, did you deal with her for the most part during that adoption, or did your wife?
We both did.
All right. And you indicated earlier that you adopted her when she was 2, but you had actually had her since she was approximately 4 months old?
4 months old.
All right. And that time, when you had her since she was 4 months old, what was the setup at that time? Did you have a guardianship of her? Did you have some form of adoption paperwork, like the beginning form of it?
I was her grandfather. I was her grandfather. and
Okay,
I was-
so she was placed with you then?
She was placed
Because you were
with
her grandfather?
Yes.
All right. And then at 2 years is when the adoption paperwork went through?
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
It was a little later than 2 years old, but she was 2. She was in her 2s.
Okay. All right, that's fair. And now, so you also indicated that since that time you've also adopted Savannah, or in the process of adopting Savannah,
That is correct.
here in the state of Arizona?
Correct.
All right. Was she born here in Arizona?
Yes.
All right. But it's not final yet? You haven't gone through... Well, what are the next steps that you have to do, if you know?
It's my understanding, and this would be done obviously through our attorney directive. I believe we have to go through some additional classes for the adoption process, the foster adopt system, and then that's pretty much it, as best I understand.
All right. And so right now, what paperwork do you have that regarding Savannah?
The signed consent from both the mother and the father.
All right. So the signed consent from your daughter, her name's Nicole, or Nikki, I believe you referred to her as?
And Nicole.
Nicole. All right, so she signed that at this point, and then you just have to take the final steps to get the final paperwork done.
That's correct.
All right. And she was actually born after all of this happened with baby Gabriel, correct?
That is correct.
Now, you indicated that you run a business here in the state of Arizona.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's been approximately since when?
Since we moved here? When we moved here, which would have been approximately between 5 and 6 years ago, that's when we did the same business in Tennessee. We just brought our business here.
All right, and that was actually part of the reason why your wife went out. Well, that's how she met Elizabeth Johnson, because she was out at a trade show or a convention of some sort,
It was a convention
and that's when she met Elizabeth Johnson. In the airport?
in the airport, yes.
And in fact, she called you from the airport, correct?
My wife did call me from the airport.
Okay, to tell you that she was on standby, or something with standby with the flight.
We had talked several times that day.
Okay. And at some point during that day, she told you that she had met a nice girl
Yes?
while on the phone, correct?
Yes?
And she said, I think this is the one I think we've got, in reference to a baby.
I don't remember those words.
Okay. Is it possible that she said that to you?
Anything might be possible, but do I remember those words? No, I do not.
Okay. Do you recall speaking with officers at your home on December 29th, 2009?
Yes?
All right. I believe that was one of the times you just talked about earlier that they came to your home.
Okay.
And do you remember telling the officers at that time that you told officers Tammi gave her number referring to I remember Tammi calling me saying, I think this is the one I think we've got. And this was in reference to the nice late girl she met at the airport with the baby.
Once again, those details would, but I don't necessarily find that either way. I mean, it's...
Okay, well, do you have any reason to dispute that that's what was said on the tape?
No, I do not. No.
And, in fact, when she came home from that trip, you picked her up at the airport, correct?
Correct.
And you met Elizabeth Johnson at the airport. You're not
Correct.
certain if the baby was asleep at the time, but you remember meeting Elizabeth, correct?
I do.
All right. And then you discussed with your wife what her and Elizabeth Johnson had discussed about possibly adopting the baby.
Certainly, yeah.
As one of her options,
Yes.
I believe,
Mhm.
is what you had said. Okay. And that then she didn't call for a long time, correct?
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Johnson didn't
No, she
call.
did not call. No.
Now, when she did call, however, you were present. I believe you said you were on the couch.
That is correct.
And at the same time, you were trying to adopt Rachel Hoover's baby.
That is correct.
Okay. And Tammi, you indicate that Tammi said she wasn't sure if she wanted to adopt Gabriel, but then after talking to you, you guys decided that maybe it would be something you would pursue.
I believe we had that discussion, certainly.
Okay. In fact, you said something like "bring it on" or
Yeah, I did
"bring
say
them
that.
on."
I did say that,
We have
yes.
a big, beautiful house.
I did say that, yes.
Bring them both on.
That's what I said, yes.
Okay. Now, at that point, you went the next day to meet with Elizabeth Johnson at her
Yes.
trailer.
Yes.
And prior to going there, you actually had paperwork already filled out for the guardianship, correct?
Yes.
I believe you stated that you went to the foster care agency first, and then you went to Elizabeth Johnson's trailer.
That is correct.
You stated you were a little bit hesitant about the whole thing, but yet you had this paperwork filled out, correct?
I said I was, yes, I was.
Okay, so did you fill this out, or did your wife?
My wife did.
Okay. Because in fact, the form that you got from your attorney was a blank form, correct?
It was a Word document.
And it had some blanks in here. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Do you recognize that?
I do not.
Do you recognize this email here?
Your Honor, I would like to know what the witness is looking at. Was there an
I'm
exhibit
sorry.
number?
There is not.
Why don't we, hang on, before you look at it, Mr. Smith, give it back to Mr. Muno. Let her show it to Ms. Phillips.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you ask the question again?
Do you recognize that email, Mr. Smith?
I do not.
Okay. Is that, if you look to the to line, it says tammysmith@gmail.com. There's another email address there. Is that your email address?
It is.
Okay. And is that an email from your attorney, Ken Schutt?
It is.
Okay. So did you just never receive that email or read it, or?
I would have had no reason to have opened that up.
Okay.
So I don't remember getting that, but I'm sure that it came through to my email. But
Okay. So would it be fair to say then that with regard to the adoption process with Rachel Hoover's baby, was your wife dealing mainly with that?
yes, pretty much, yes.
Okay. And would it be fair to say the same for the possible adoption of Gabriel Johnson?
Yeah, pretty much.
Was she mainly dealing with that? Okay. So you never actually saw this email or the document attached to it?
No.
All right, that's fair. But you did, however, see this guardianship paper that was brought to Elizabeth Johnson's on December 9th.
Honestly, I never saw that one either.
Okay. How come you never saw it?
Because I didn't have it. I'm not the one that had it in my possession, so I didn't see it. I think I even said the other day it must have been scratched off, I think, in our interview that we talked. So I had never seen that piece of paper.
Okay, but you knew you were going to the bank, to Bank of America, to notarize this type of a document?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So would it be fair to say then, since you've never seen this, that your wife filled this out?
Yes.
Now, regarding, I want to go back a little bit to Rachel Hoover and her baby. You had indicated that your wife met her at a Jack in the Box. She had come home and she told you about that, correct?
Yes.
And she's the one that gave you all the information about meeting with Rachel Hoover and the circumstances surrounding Rachel Hoover.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you only spent maybe a couple hours with Rachel Hoover and her boyfriend? If that?
It was a couple of hours, certainly.
Okay. Did you find that to be odd?
No.
No?
No, I didn't.
You didn't find it to be odd that a couple had only met you for a few hours, was willing to give their baby to you?
No, I didn't find that odd. People do that every day, don't they?
But you had stated earlier that you felt it odd that Elizabeth Johnson would give you her baby after only spending a few hours with her.
The baby was 7 months old.
Rachel Hoover's baby wasn't even born yet, correct?
Right. The baby hadn't bonded with her.
Now, you talked to us a little bit about the circumstances surrounding that adoption, and I believe you stated that you were close to adopting the child, correct? Referring to
Yes.
Rachel Hoover's baby.
Okay, yes.
And the attorney called and said that the couple had wanted a considerable amount of money.
That's correct.
Okay, what was a considerable amount of money?
They wanted, best I remember, was $3,500.
$3,500, okay. Now, Mr. Smith, you indicated that you have a successful business, correct?
Okay, yes,
You have a large home in the city of Scottsdale.
that's correct.
You have had previous successful business as a music producer, correct?
Yes.
And as a musician.
Yes,
Okay. Is it fair to say that Rachel Hoover and her boyfriend didn't have the resources that you had?
it's fair to assume that, yes.
And yet, $3,500 for legal fees and possible medical fees is too much money?
First of all, she wouldn't have legal fees. Ken Shutt was going to handle that.
All right. Well, isn't it true that you suggested to her that she obtain her own legal advice, and in fact, Mr. Shutt suggested that as well?
I'm not real sure Mr. Shutt will talk for himself. I don't know that to be a fact. I didn't.
He never advised you of that?
Not that I remember, no.
Hold on. Overruled.
Not that you recall? You
Not
don't
that I
recall him advising you of that? Or your wife?
I don't remember him advising, no.
That the other party to an adoption should have their own legal advice before entering into an adoption agreement?
I don't recall any of that.
But it's fair to say that Rachel Hoover and her boyfriend did get legal advice, from what you know.
From what I know, yes, they
Okay.
got an adoption attorney.
Right, and I believe you indicated that you weren't going to buy a baby.
Correct.
Isn't the real reason that you couldn't afford it? Not that you weren't going to buy a baby, you just couldn't afford it at that time.
I don't think that's the question. I don't think that's the answer. But whether I could afford it or I didn't afford it, it wouldn't matter.
Okay. If your attorney indicated to Rachel Hoover's attorney that unfortunately they are unable to pay the amount your clients need to make this adoption happen, would he be incorrect in that?
That's a pretty broad statement, certainly,
Okay. But you did offer to pay $1,000 for living expenses.
because that's what legally we could do.
Okay.
$500 to each.
$500 to each parent?
The parent, yes.
Okay, and you were willing to pay $300 for the attorney's fee?
Yeah, that we would take ours.
All right. Now, are you aware of the fact that your wife, just the year prior, was indicating that you were willing to pay up to $900 a month to a surrogate?
I don't know.
You're not aware of that?
No.
Okay, were you aware of her surrogacy plans?
No.
Had you ever discussed surrogacy with her?
We had discussion about the possibilities because of her sister, yes, but
Okay.
no.
Did you ever discuss using somebody not her sister as a surrogate?
The possibilities arose, but no, never anything definite, no.
Okay, what do you mean the possibilities arose?
Meaning, we talked about several things, but there was never anything definite, no.
Okay, so you're not aware if there was ever any procedures done involving another woman having a child on you and your wife's behalf?
Objection,
No.
Your Honor. I think he's answered that.
You can answer the question.
No? Okay. Are you aware of her various advertisements and posts on MySpace regarding seeking out a surrogate in the state of California?
As a possibility? Yeah, that was a possibility, certainly.
Okay, so you are aware that she was seeking that out?
I knew that she did that, but there was nothing done as it relates to a surrogate. I mean, first of all, you can do lots of things on a fact-finding mission. No, we didn't do anything.
All right, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
been admitted as Exhibit 202. Now, just by way of explanation, Mr. Smith, these are messages and posts from your wife's MySpace page. Okay, you are aware that she had one, correct?
A MySpace account? Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that you actually, did you use it when you contacted Elizabeth Johnson?
I did.
Okay, so you actually wrote the message, but it was with her account.
That's correct, because I didn't have it.
Would you take a look at these first few Actually, let me direct you to the MySpace post dated 11/20/2008 at 9:18 p.m. Would you read that?
We have been trying to find a traditional surrogate to have a baby for us in California for a while. If you know anyone that would like to try it, we are offering $800 per month for the entire 10 months. My 3-year-old adopted daughter is getting antsy. LOL.
And who is it signed by? Or what's the signature line state?
Tammy, Jack, and Hannah.
Okay. Are you aware of that message, or were you until now?
Until now, no.
Okay. So is it fair to say that you don't always know what your wife's doing when you're not around?
I think that's a fair assumption. On the computer, I can't. Yeah.
And that you may have discussions about things and have a plan of action or a course of action, but she might be going off doing her own thing that you really don't know about.
Going off is a broad term. Going off into the computer room?
Okay, well,
Maybe.
do you agree that earlier you stated we had a vague discussion, or it sounded like you may have had a vague discussion about surrogacy with your wife?
Mm-hmm.
But yet she's
I'm sorry, yes.
gone off on the computer or wherever she did it from,
Right.
whether it was in your house or somewhere else, and she's soliciting surrogates in another state and offering to pay them $800 a month. Correct?
I see that, but no, but that's not a contract with someone. We didn't do it.
Oh, no, but you didn't know about it, right?
Well, I didn't know, but I didn't know that, no.
Okay, and you didn't know that she's offering $800 a month?
No.
You also... I'm going to go back now to the Elizabeth Johnson situation, okay? You indicated that when you first met with her, that she had portrayed Logan McQueary in a certain light.
Forgive me, one more time, please.
I'm sorry. When you first met Elizabeth Johnson, she portrayed Logan McQueary to you in a certain light.
That is correct.
It wasn't a very favorable light.
That is correct.
Okay, and you believed her.
Yeah, sort of believed
Sort
her.
of. Okay. What do you mean by sort of?
Felt as though there's 3 sides to every story, hers, his, and the truth. And I believe that, because of paperwork that we saw, that the basis of what she was saying was true. But we took it under our own to look for ourselves to see if what we were seeing was actual truth.
Okay, and so that's when you looked up his record.
Correct.
But that record doesn't tell you the circumstances of what happened in those convictions, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, no. I haven't looked
doesn't.
at those in a long time.
You didn't read the police reports,
No, I couldn't see the police report.
for example. Okay, it just lists what the offense is.
As best I remember, yes, that's correct.
Now, you also indicated that she wanted to adopt the child out to you. She had no support. She wanted to go to school, wasn't able to survive,
Yes,
couldn't work.
that's what she said.
She said she couldn't work because she couldn't afford child care, correct?
Yeah, that was in essence what I was saying. It was a catch-22 type situation.
Okay. But you are aware that he was in daycare.
He was in daycare. We were told that he was in daycare a while back.
Okay. Because she told you the story about Logan's father going to pick him up from daycare, and there was an issue with that, correct?
That is correct, but that was a while back.
Did she specifically tell you when it was? Or are you just assuming it was a while back?
She said she couldn't afford child care any longer, okay?
Any longer?
Well, she told us she couldn't afford child care in the very beginning. But then she told us later about the story of Logan's daddy going and picking him up from there. So I guess 2 and 2 meets 4.
So she's telling you she's telling you her version of events on December 9th, correct? The day you go to the trailer and the day you end up leaving with baby Gabriel.
Yes.
Okay, after executing the guardianship paperwork.
Yes.
All right. Then you take him home, and a couple days later, or actually that day, the police contact you looking for the baby.
That's correct.
Okay. Then a couple days later, you're notified that there's a court hearing, correct?
It was longer than a couple of days.
Okay. Well, I believe you indicated that your wife went to help Elizabeth Johnson file the court paperwork. And I'm assuming your wife told you that, correct?
Which would have been about
14th.
14th?
Okay, so 5 days later.
Okay, that's, yeah,
5 days later,
5 days.
you're notified that Logan McQueary has filed for custody of his child, or there's a court hearing regarding custody of the child.
Correct.
And your wife told you that she was going to help Elizabeth Johnson file the paperwork?
No.
She never told you that?
No.
How did you know that she went?
I found out later that she had gone to the courthouse. She didn't go to Elizabeth to go help her fill out paperwork. She knew nothing about that.
Okay, but eventually she told you that she had gone to the courthouse with her.
That's correct.
You just didn't know prior to her going.
That's correct.
All right. And then the 17th rolls around, which is the date of the hearing. If the court paperwork indicates
Right.
the 17th, would you have any reason to dispute that?
No,
Okay.
that's fine. Yes.
All right. And so on that date, you're asked to bring Gabriel to the courthouse by Elizabeth, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you get in the car with your wife, Hannah, and Gabriel, and you drive to the courthouse, correct?
That's correct.
But you're stating that you were told you could not go in
That's correct.
by Elizabeth?
That's correct.
All right. So you don't go into the courthouse at all?
No.
You're waiting outside,
Yes.
and you see Elizabeth come out?
As best I can remember, I saw Elizabeth come out, so my wife gets out of the car.
Okay. So your wife gets out of the car, she goes and speaks with Tammy. Was this by the fountain, I believe?
I believe that's correct.
All right. And you're still in the car, though, right?
Looking for a parking place.
Looking for a parking place, and you've got both children in the car with you.
Yes.
And then you see Logan McQueary and his father come out.
At that moment, no.
All right.
I was out of the car.
You were out of the car?
Yes.
When you saw Logan McQueary?
Yes.
Where were you?
I was right at I got a parking place right on the curb, and I was getting the kids out as he and his father passed by. I didn't know it was him at the time. I was told later, because I had never met Logan.
Okay, so who notified you that it was Logan?
Elizabeth.
And where were you when that happened?
I was getting the children together to come out.
Okay, so they were still in the car.
Yeah, I mean, in process of getting out of the car. At that particular moment, were they physically out of the car, or were I unbuckling them, or what exactly I was doing? I can't, I can't give detail as to exactly what I was doing.
All right. Do you recall speaking with us on April 30th, 2012?
Speaking with whom?
With us at our office?
Yes.
There was an interview.
Yes,
All the attorneys were there.
that's correct.
Okay. And we asked you about you being at the courthouse that day. Mm-hmm. And you recall
Yes.
telling us that when Logan and his dad walked straight past us, that you were still in the car, parking the car, and Gabriel was in his car seat.
You know what, to be honest with you, I don't remember that exact thing, saying that, but again, we're in varying degrees of getting out of the car, so I was parking the car, so Gabriel, I doubt very seriously his dad could have passed by us while we were in the car we were parking, so.
Okay. Now, you also indicated that today in court that you did not look up anything regarding the paperwork from that hearing on December 17th. I believe Ms. Phillips asked you earlier
That's right.
if you had gone onto the computer or done anything to look up those documents. And do you recall stating that you didn't see any court documents and that you tried to look them up?
I'm assuming, okay, because first of all, that was the day that it happened. It wouldn't have been logged in. We were trying to find some proof of what was going on. So looking it up or whatever, I don't know, remember exactly what the circumstances was, but don't know that that's...
Okay. Well, specifically, my question was, did you remember stating that earlier in court that you tried to look it up?
I remember, yes.
All right. And do you remember speaking with us on April 30th, 2012, the interview I was just asking you about earlier?
Okay.
Okay, and at that time, you told us that you didn't try to look it up on the computer.
Okay.
All right. And you indicated that you felt it wouldn't be available at that point?
Correct.
And you're assuming it wouldn't be available at that point?
Assuming yes.
Okay, but you don't know because you actually never tried to look it up.
Okay.
Now we get to the next date when Elizabeth Johnson calls and asks you, well, you brought baby Gabriel home after you went to the court, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then Elizabeth Johnson calls and asks you to bring the child because he has to visit with his father.
The following day, yes.
Okay, and so the following day you take him to the Glass and Garden Church to drop him off, and you're indicating that it was Elizabeth's choice to meet at that church.
That's correct.
Okay, but I believe you stated something a little bit earlier that she was at her grandfather's house, but you didn't want to have to go to find an address. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, yeah.
Okay, so you asked her to think of another common location.
Sure.
And that's why you went to the Glass and Garden Church.
I think what I said was that is close to her grandfather's house. She had indicated that, and that she was near her grandfather's house or something, and then that's the place that she chose, so that's what we went.
And so you pack baby Gabriel up.
Mm-hmm.
You pack up some.
Yes.
You pack up some items for him.
We do.
Correct. What kind of items did you pack up for him?
Elizabeth asked us to bring him one piece of clothing, one bottle, one diaper, one jar of baby food, so that, in her words, so that Logan could find out what it's like to be a father.
Okay. All right, so in essence, giving him just enough to get through, but making him go out and get the rest.
So he would have to go, yeah.
So he would have to go and purchase those things for the child. And in fact, a document was brought to that meeting regarding this visitation with Logan McQueary, correct?
Now that you mention it, I do remember that.
All right. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you what's previously been admitted at was exhibit number 60. And I've pulled out the first page of that exhibit. Do you recognize that document?
Yeah, I remember my wife, now that you mention it, I remember my wife saying something about that, yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen this before today?
I don't, I'm still reading it, by the way.
Okay. I'm sorry. Take your time and let me know when you're finished.
I remember this, that Elizabeth had asked my wife to do that because she did not have a printer for her computer, I think, and she wanted to do that. So now that I've not seen that in 2.5 years.
Okay, and that's fine, that's understandable, but did you see it that day?
You know what? I don't remember. I don't remember seeing it at that particular day. I don't know if it was between then and now, but it's certainly not relevant to me.
Okay, so I'm assuming that that document, your wife had that in her possession and brought it to Elizabeth Johnson, correct?
Oh yes.
Did you see her hand the document to her?
Again, I don't remember her handing something to her. There's a lot of things I probably don't remember 2.5 years ago.
All right, but you certainly didn't type that.
No.
And you didn't bring the document, and you didn't hand it to Elizabeth Johnson.
I did not.
And while we're waiting for
Yeah. We're talking about Exhibit
60, it's been previously admitted, Your
Right.
Honor. All right, and this is the document that we're speaking about, that you recall your wife talking about, but you don't remember if you actually saw it that day.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And it's dated Saturday, December 20th, 2009?
That was the day he was supposed to pick him up.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Mr. Smith, when you brought Gabriel home, the intent was to adopt Gabriel Johnson, correct?
If things had worked out, certainly.
Okay. And in fact, you and your wife represented to people that you had adopted or were adopting this child.
Represented ourselves as being that? You said?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, we did.
You mentioned something earlier about just babysitting. You weren't just babysitting this child. You were taking this child in with the intent to adopt him.
If things had worked out, yes.
And then it became clear that things were going to become difficult.
It became clear that both parties were not in agreement of that.
And in fact, when Logan McQueary filed for a custody determination on his son, you didn't look at that very favorably. Is that a fair statement?
Me looking at it favorably, I'm trying to think of how I felt at that point. I mean, it struck me odd. It struck me odd that someone without a house and a car would want to adopt a child, but therefore I don't think I had any one way or the other.
Okay, so are you saying that someone who doesn't have a house or a car doesn't have the right to raise their child?
No, I said it seemed odd, did I not?
Okay.
I said it seemed odd.
It seems odd that a father would want to have his child, even though
No.
he might not have a job or a car.
No. I said it seemed odd that he would now come forward and try to do that in light of circumstances.
Okay, and in fact, you refer to the whole court process as court junk. Isn't that true?
Once again, my choice of words, because I think even the judge indicated that it was silly. As
You
we were
weren't
told.
there, though, were you?
I was not there, as we were told.
So you don't know what the judge said.
I do not.
But your reference to it being court junk was actually in reference to Logan McQueary trying to have a custody order regarding his son.
No,
That's not?
no,
That's not what you meant.
no. I
Okay,
meant
one
both.
moment, Your Honor.
I meant both.
I'm sorry?
I meant both her and him.
Her and him.
Yes.
So the legal process involved in determining custody of a child is court junk to you?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall referring to it as that?
I do.
Do you recall telling us on April 30th, 2012, that you call it court junk because Logan filed suit against Elizabeth for his parental rights?
First of all, it's an abuse of the court system from my perspective when two people can work out their own situation. I don't believe, first of all, using that medium I think is wrong. First of all, they should have sat down and had civil conversations with each other.
Okay, well, obviously that doesn't happen all the time, right?
You know, it should, but maybe no. Yeah.
Okay, well, what should happen and what happens in reality are two different things sometimes, correct?
Yeah, we're experiencing.
You indicated that you tried to get a hold of Logan McQueary.
Yes.
And prior to going to the 99-cent store on that date, how did you try to get a hold of him?
Asking Elizabeth to help us get a hold of him.
Did you do anything independently of that?
I'm assuming we probably, and again, I don't remember 2.5 years ago the details of that, but I assume that we did the normal stuff, which would be looking up phone records online or trying to find something online.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Smith, you indicated earlier in your testimony that right after you got Hannah, you knew you wanted a sibling for her.
Yeah.
Okay, and did you make efforts right away to try to find a sibling for her at that time?
No.
It wasn't until, when was it that you were actively involved in trying to find a sibling for her, or you knew about it?
I don't know exactly when, but it was probably within 12 months or so. And I'm guesstimating.
Okay, was it prior to June of 2009?
Prior to June 2009.
Prior to when your wife met Elizabeth Johnson in the airport?
Actively, not to the best of my knowledge, no. We certainly were praying about it.
And when this opportunity with baby Gabriel came along, you felt that this was a gift to you in a sense.
We felt it could be.
Okay. And you wanted to adopt the baby. That was
Yes,
your
ma'am.
intent
Yes,
when you took him home on that date on December 9th, correct?
that's correct.
And in fact, you were going to change his name, weren't you?
We thought about it.
To Jacob.
We thought about it,
And you
yes.
actually discussed it with Elizabeth Johnson.
We did.
All And you actually saved files in your computer of Gabriel's pictures under the name Jacob.
We did.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you. Now, Jack, when you talked to Elizabeth about Tennessee, you did not give her any specific information, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't tell her where to go.
Did not.
Do you remember what you did tell her about Tennessee?
I certainly told her that I had property there. I certainly told her I had family there. And that's probably the crux of what I did tell her.
Okay, and why did you even bring that up?
Again, she was talking about going underground, not being available, going underground, and no one would ever see her again. We would never see her again. Logan would never see her again. And that was not the right thing to do. So therefore, if she's going to run, if she has to run, then maybe she can run at least where we know where she's at.
And do you remember when that conversation took place?
I don't know exactly. It was very close to the end. I can tell you. I know that.
Was it after she left Phoenix?
Oh, of course. Yes, it was after. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was right around, it would have been around the 24th, somewhere in that area.
Of December?
Right, of December.
2009.
Right before Christmas, yes, 2009.
Okay. And I apologize for talking over. Okay, now, I'm afraid we might be a little bit confused about the guardianship paperwork, so let me ask you a couple of questions about that. When you went to Elizabeth's trailer the first time, you've testified that you had the guardianship paperwork that is exhibit, I believe it's 148, with you, right?
That is correct, yes.
And why did you take that with you to Elizabeth's trailer?
It was my understanding and my recollection that we had it with us to show to the foster adopt agency or foster agency, however they call it, to make sure that it would suffice in the interim, in the event that this baby was born and Rachel did not want to take this baby home. This was it. I was under the understanding that that's why we would have it. Details like that I'm not positive of, but I later found out that I didn't know that Gabriel's name and Elizabeth's name were actually put in there. So.
Okay, so did you see that form before you went to Elizabeth's trailer?
I don't remember
that day?
seeing the form. I remember hearing about the form, but I don't remember seeing the form.
Okay, and did Tammi tell you she was taking the form to Elizabeth?
I'm sure she did. I don't really remember that detail. I remember the detail of running around trying to find a Bank of America so we could get it notarized because that was our bank.
Okay, and again, to clarify, because I think this is a little confusing, you've mentioned now Rachel Hoover's baby in relation to this guardianship form.
Right.
So what does the guardianship form have to do with Rachel Hoover's baby?
It was created for Rachel.
And who created it?
Ken Shutt, the attorney.
Okay. And so you had the template on the computer, is that?
We had a Word document, yes. And I think probably the reason, I'm assuming that the reason for the template or the lines that could be filled in was because the baby didn't have a name. And so I think that was probably what Ken was doing, was giving us something to have so that we could fill in the name, I guess. I'm not real, to be honest with you, those are details that I just, they go right over my head.
Okay, fair enough. And again, about Miss Hoover, why did you not want to give Rachel Hoover any money? Well, let me clarify that. That's not exactly right. Why did you not want to give Rachel Hoover the $3,500 that you believe she was asking for?
Because it's not right. At least from my perspective, it's not right.
Well, you made a counteroffer, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and what was that counteroffer?
Legally, we can give them $500 each. We were going to give him $500 and give her $500.
Okay, and as far as you know, Ms. Hoover had an adoption attorney?
Not at that point. At the end, she did.
Okay, and you had an adoption attorney?
Yes, we did.
And did your attorney talk to her attorney, as far as you know?
They did.
Okay, and so when did the subject of money come up?
I would have to say the last time we talked to him, and I don't remember what day that would have been, but it would have had to have been probably in the week of the 11th, 12th, in that area, 13th, somewhere in that area.
After they hired an attorney?
After they hired an attorney, yes.
Okay. And did your dealings with Ms. Hoover, strike that, did you speak with your attorney to get advice regarding the adoption of Rachel Hoover's baby?
Certainly we did, yes.
And did you follow his advice?
Absolutely.
And was the $1,000 offer for living expenses based on advice from your attorney?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, now you've testified that you and Tammy had discussed possible surrogacy when you were looking to adopt a child, correct?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry, forgive me.
Okay, and at some point, she and you agreed that it was not a viable option for you, correct?
Correct.
And why did you and she decide that?
I can't remember the circumstances surrounding it, but I mean, just on the surface, as we're sitting here today talking about it, I just don't like the idea of it. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, people do it all the time, but I don't really know why. To be honest with you, it just didn't fit what I wanted. I'm sure I had a better reason 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago, but I don't have one today. I'm sorry.
Okay, and you've seen the MySpace postings
Yes.
that Tammy put out there about surrogates, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever talk to anyone directly about being a surrogate for you and Tammy?
No.
Now, we have talked a lot about Elizabeth portraying Logan in a certain manner, correct?
Correct.
And you stated on direct that you did not have a favorable impression of him based on what she told you.
That's correct.
And you and Tammy did your own separate confirmation of his record, correct?
Correct.
And you confirmed that he had a felony record.
That's correct.
Would there have been any reason for you at that point early on to question anything Elizabeth was telling you?
No, because what we did see at the same time we saw that she presented his record to us, she also presented her parenting classes that she had gone to, that were all signed off on, all of his shot records that he had gone to. So we were to assume at that particular point, again, on the surface, we assumed, here's this, and then here's this. And one looked like she was doing everything that she could to keep this baby and her going.
Okay, and there was also some confusion about the day you and Tammy and Hannah and Gabriel met Elizabeth at court about where you were relative to Elizabeth and Logan and Frank McQueary when they came out of the courthouse.
Right.
Had you ever met Logan before that day?
I had never met him.
And when were you made aware that Logan and his father had come out of the courthouse.
It was after that. It was after I had actually got the babies out of the car and was going, because it was my understanding we were going to go have lunch and meet with him.
Okay, so you don't know exactly when they walked by, do you?
Not exactly, because I was just told that was who that was.
Okay, and who told you?
It was Elizabeth.
Reference Exhibit 60, and that would be the document that we saw reference Logan and the visitation that was brought to Elizabeth when you exchanged, or when you gave Gabriel to her. Let me ask you a couple of questions about that. Now, you stated that Elizabeth had asked Tammi to write up this document.
That's correct.
Do you know why?
Well, again, I mentioned that what she said was that she wanted him to understand what it was like to be a father, to have to purchase diapers, to have to purchase formula. So we obliged, and we did what she suggested we do and what she wanted us to do.
And was it Elizabeth that was going to give this form to Logan?
Yes.
That was your understanding?
Yes.
And as far as you know, Logan never received that document, did he?
I have no reason to know that, because if he never got the baby, I don't think he would have gotten the document.
And the reason he never got the document was because Elizabeth left the state that day with the baby, didn't she?
What day she left the state, I'm not aware of, but that is what is alleged, that she left that day. I guess to make it to San Antonio, I guess she had to. I don't know. But in answer to your question, no.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Sorry.
Does the jury have any questions for Mr. Smith before we let him go? We do have at least one question, so sit tight. Mr. Smith, I've got a question. I'm asking it, but the jury's really asking you the question, so give them the answer. Here's the question. When you first picked up baby Gabriel from Elizabeth Johnson, you mentioned your concern about his safety. Why didn't you contact CPS?
Very good question. I don't know that I had the concern for his life as it relates to the concern when we picked him up. And I don't think that I would have enough evidence or any justification other than a gut feeling. And I honestly don't believe that DCS would go off of a gut feeling. Maybe, I don't know. But you know what? It was late in the afternoon, and that was never really brought up as an option of what we should do at that particular point. Honestly, that's the only answer I have for it. I'm trying to think of what could be a better answer, but I don't know. I wasn't concerned for his life. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I was concerned for his well-being, and no evidence to really substantiate his well-being.
Follow up, Ms. Phillips.
Jack, you said DCS, but do you mean CPS?
CPS, I'm sorry, DCS in Tennessee.
And again, what is DCS?
DCS is Department of Children's Services. DCS, that's in Tennessee. And CPS is Children Protective Services here
Okay.
in Arizona. It's same thing here.
And you said you were relying on gut feelings.
Yeah, it was a gut feeling.
Did you ever think that Gabriel was in any danger while he was with Elizabeth?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Follow up, Mr. Raimundo.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Any other questions from the jury before Mr. Smith steps down? Going once, going twice. May this witness be excused?
Yes,
Mr. Raimundo, may this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're at about the time for our afternoon break, so we're going to take it. We'll take a break of about 15 minutes or so, and we'll be back sometime around 3:20, I think. So remember the admonition, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
All rise.
Everyone? Anybody need to talk about anything?
Judge, I do. One issue. I believe that Ms. Smith is going to be next. I let the state know that she printed out her own records, her own phone records. I know we've got the official records that have been entered in. They are a confusing mess if you look at them. They're a spreadsheet. They look like they were put into Excel or something like that, and it's in seconds, not minutes. She's got a detailed phone record and if I had a clean copy, I would have used a clean copy, that she's made notes on who she was talking to and what was going on in the particular conversation. But it's broken down in phone numbers and minutes, which I think is far easier for the jury to understand. And I'd like to walk her through this record. And it's also got Jack Smith on there, and I suppose we can take that out of the exhibit. But I'd like to walk her through this and talk about various phone calls and how long they were. It's important because there's very few, when we talk about the recordings that Logan McQueary made, the actual amount of time reflected here that she actually talked to Logan far exceeds the few minutes of recordings that we had. And the state made a big deal about you recorded everything but one. And I'd like the jury, instead of having to look through really a confusing mess of seconds, to be able to look at this, and I could show the court the record I have, so you can see what I'm talking about, where we've got minutes, we've got phone numbers, we've got times, we've got, Scottsdale, Tempe, whatever it might be. Rather than just a beginning time, we've got the exact minutes that the conversation took. And I think it's going to be far easier for the jury to be able to follow this and understand what happened. In fact, we spent an entire day, as I remember, explaining azimuths and what this code meant and that code meant. We've got it broken down in an easy-to-understand consumer format here. And if I could approach the bench and show the court what I'm talking about.
One, has the state received a copy of this?
I showed it to them. I do have a copy for them.
Okay,
Well,
so
this is the first time
Yeah.
I'm receiving a copy. I saw it this morning only because the clerk advised me that there was a new exhibit that I might want to look at. And then Mr. Lee came over just as we were starting this morning and said, oh, by the way, I'm going to seek to use this as an exhibit. As you can tell, it's quite lengthy, several pages. Your Honor, there's no foundation for it. I mean, when we admitted the phone records, we received certification for those and had the detective lay the foundation. They include her handwritten notes on them. And so we certainly would object to those. If they want to use this to refresh her recollection, if she wants to use these to help her testify to refresh her recollection, I think she certainly has a right to do that. But we certainly object to this being used as an exhibit in this case.
okay, here's what I think. I think you're both right and both wrong. I think you could probably use the document without her writing on it as a summary under Rule 1006, if it's a fair summary. However, I don't think the state's had an opportunity to decide whether it's a fair summary because they just got it. So I'm not going to admit it without the state looking at it and being in a position to challenge whether it's a fair summary. I think a fair summary might be admissible as an exhibit if it's a fair summary, but not with her notes. Can she use that document with her notes to refresh her recollection? Yes, if it helps her, but that doesn't mean it's admissible. The only way I see it coming in would be as a summary, likely without her notes, because then she's adding to the document and becomes essentially to her testimony on the document with her.
And when I looked at the spreadsheet format that the state has set up, I realized it was a mess and utterly unintelligible, and that's why I thought, well, we've got this, and I try to do it, but it's the best I have, and I would love to have had a fresh copy for everyone.
Well, but we can still deal with it. We have to go through a couple steps. One, you need a clean copy without her notes. I don't know if one exists, but we need to have that, number one. Number two, the state needs to get an opportunity to look at it to see if the state believes it should challenge an assertion that this is a fair summary of an exhibit already admitted. If the state thinks or doesn't object, then I would let a clean document potentially in as a summary. I'll never let in as an exhibit a document with her handwriting on it. That's testimonial in nature, and I'm not going to let that come in. But she can use it to refresh her recollection. I think that's fine when she's testifying. as of right now, you simply can't get the document in evidence. That doesn't mean you can't get it in tomorrow. If you get a clean copy and you don't have one today, you can work with it today and then seek to admit it later if you want.
If I may, Judge, and I know everybody wants to take a break. There's two things on here. I think the handwriting, cleaning that up, I can do. I can get a paralegal. It'll look a little messy, but I can get a paralegal to go clean it up. There's some circles around different things that I don't, around the minutes, that I don't know that I can clean up very well. I could try, but I wonder what the court's position was on the circling. Yes, may I approach you?
Your Honor, I might point out that there's additional stuff in this packet.
There
that
is,
not
and we're going to need to
records.
take it off. That is her travel itinerary. We can pull that off the back, and then Jack's. If you look at the back, there's Jack's phone number.
Yeah, there's
as well.
several things in here that are. And, Your Honor, I will point also, this is a 15.2 discovery violation.
Okay, well, we have several moving parts, don't we? Okay. Let me take a look. Don't we have, Mr. Lee, somebody created this document, isn't there?
Print it up off the internet, Judge. That's my belief where she got it.
Okay.
Just as if you were to check your phone bill, this is what your company might show you.
All right, well, let me take a look. I'm not sure I'm too concerned about circling, but the other handwritten notes need to come out. I think you can take out at least some of the circling, but I do note there's a fair amount of circling, and then we get into some actual emails and other things that need to come out.
We can excise that out off the back, Your Honor. I should have done that. I just put it together how it was given to me. It's actually relevant stuff, but it doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. But I think I can get it cleaned up the best that I can, and hopefully have a clean copy the best I can tomorrow.
Okay, well, we'll look at what you've got tomorrow.
Okay.
At that point, I'll, of course, let the state object whether the state thinks it's not a fair summary, whether there's another issue in terms of things that are left on the document. And if you want to make a 15.2 objection at that point, you can as well, and I'll deal with it then when you seek to admit it. I do think I'm going to allow you to have it when you're examining Ms. Smith. She can have this in front of her to refresh her recollection to the extent that she needs to do it. That's a fair use of it now, and that's how we'll treat it now. Any questions about what we're doing? Ms. Andrews, any other issues with this document you feel like we need to talk about right now?
Not at the moment, Your Honor.
Okay. If there are any before Ms. Smith testifies, we can address it. Mr. Lee, anything else before we take a break?
No, Judge. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you in a few minutes.